Hi, this is Nick Hodge with the Outsider Club. I'm sitting down today with Rob McEwen on the sidelines of the Beaver Creek Precious Metal Summit. Mr. McEwen needs no introduction, but I'll give him a brief one anyway. He's the founder of Gold Corp, which he took from inception to an $8 billion company when he left. It's now a $12 billion company. He's been bestowed with the Order of Canada. He was bestowed with the Queen Elizabeth's 75th Jubilee Award, the Diamond Jubilee. He's been inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame, and he's a heck of a philanthropist. Mr. McEwen, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here, Nick.
I'm going to start with a very technical question, Mr. McEwen. Why does the gold space suck?
It's not making money for shareholders. There are all sorts of other places in the market where people are making a lot of money. Once we start making money again here, we'll have investors back.
How do you make money in the gold space with a flat gold price?
Well, you try to improve your operations. You do some exploration and find a higher grade material that you can mine at a lower cost. When I was building Gold Corp, the gold market had been falling from all the way through to 2001. And we got down to $250 an ounce. But we ended up with 67% gross margins, 37% net margins. We were producing gold at $60 an ounce. So exploration plays a very big role in improving the economics. And then it's just keeping your overhead, your G&A, your corporate head office lighter, and looking at your operations and saying, how can we constantly improve that operation? Sort of like Lexus or Toyota, and they're always trying to drive the cost down of the operation to make it more efficient.
Let's talk about driving down the G&A and some of the other costs that have become sort of a thorn in the side of the Vancouver sphere of gold and mining finance that some outspoken investors, high net worth and professional investors have now spoken out against, like Mr. Paulson, for example. What is your opinion on that sort of stigma around the Vancouver financing mechanisms and high cost and things?
I don't know if it's just Vancouver, but the G&A, corporate expense and salaries are out of line. They're disproportionate to the type of returns that are being given to shareholders. And when you have CEOs getting as much as presidents of the Royal Bank or the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, you're going, totally different operation. It's not justified at this point, particularly at this stage of the market. When I was running Gold Corp, I had a reasonably low salary. When I moved to US or McEwen Mining, for the first 10 years I got zero. Mm-hmm. And the last 2 years I got a raise. I'm now at $1 a year. And I wanted to be in a position where I participated at exactly the same level as the shareholders, and I would make money the same way, and that's through a higher share price.
And for that you should be commended?
Well, I think more people should go that way. It's a partnership with our shareholders that we have, and we have to give them a return, and then they'll come back.
I want to talk about McEwen Mining in a second, which you call yourself the chief owner of. But before that, I want to ask you a question about bringing new blood and new investors into the mining space. You had indicated to me on our walk up here that there are people in Nevada that don't know that gold is mined in Nevada. And I know in my peer group and many people younger than me, the millennials and the so-called generations that are coming after them, they have no idea that minerals and metals are pulled from the ground to make the devices that they use 20 hours a day. Beyond the cannabis bubble imploding and the cryptocurrency leveling out or some money coming out of that, how do we attract new and specifically younger investors to the mining space?
One, you have to talk about it. Two, you have to get them to appreciate that the industry is cyclical. So there'll be times when you want to be long and times when you don't want to be in it. And we are right now at a 48-year low of commodities relative to equities. So I think we're basing, and they'll start seeing an improvement in the commodity prices. The industry, too, is using a lot more skills than it used to. So you can show the jobs that are there. Telecommuting is going to be possible, so maybe you could work in a major city or in a small town where you want to be, and you don't have to be at the mine site. So the mine of the future will be more remote, and that may attract more people. I just don't think a lot of people look at mining, and particularly gold, they think of it as being rapacious and destroying the environment. There's a lot of work done to preserve the environment and actually improve it beyond where it was. I mean, there's an interval when it looks very different, but we can work to improve it, make a better model. You might also say, well, can you beautify the landscape?
Sure, leave it better than you found it.
Yes, and that make people part of that quest.
Can we talk about what you're doing in that regard with your current company, McEwen Mining, of which you're the chief owner, the chairman? You've got over $130 million of your own money in, and as you said, you only take a $1 salary. That's the capital structure and the ethics side of things, I would say. Let's talk about the things you're doing to innovate, and let's talk about your projects and things as well.
Sure. I should just add, I just added another $25 million investment in the company.
Well, we need to update the website then.
Well, my equity interest, I have $130 million, my cost base, but I put another $25 million in the form of debt.
Got it.
So we borrowed 50 and I put half of it up.
Got it.
So what are we doing? Innovation has always been a big part. When I was running Goldcorp, we had the Goldcorp Challenge where we asked the world to look at our site and tell us where we'd find the next 6 million ounces of gold. I found after that exercise, because we spent $1 million and found $3 billion worth of gold, that the biggest gold mine in the world is between everybody's ears. So how do you connect that? How do you pull those thoughts out and put them into practice? One of the areas we're using is a heap leach is just a big pile of gravel. And what's going on in there? And we said, well, could we use wireless sensors and put them into the heap leach to get a sense of the moisture levels and the compaction levels, because those both affect recovery. Why do we have to be satisfied with a 70 or 80% recovery from a heap leach when in a mill you can get 95% plus? So that's part of a strive that we put these sensors every 25 feet and you get a colored coded map that says you've got the right amount of moisture, or you have too little and you're not getting any recovery, or you have too much and you're retarding it.
And so you can adjust in real time.
Yes, and you get your operators doing that. Working with a couple of universities, a lot of people are using drones, but it's just using the benefit of the cameras and that to look at fragmentation. How is your blasting working? How can you reduce the amount of water used? Because that's a really critical issue in a lot of places. In Mexico, we were going to build a separate mine site for a silver deposit we had. And the silver price went down in 2015, so we said, let's leave it in the ground right now. It's not economic to get it out, but the silver price is going to come back and the silver's not going away.
That's right.
And in that interim, we said, well, rather than building a separate standalone facility, why don't the mill we were going to build over here, why don't we build it back at the mine where we have the gold production right now, which is about 5 miles apart. And rather than building a standalone tailings facility, we just dug a big hole over there. It's called a pit. Why don't we put our tailings in the pit? And thereby we've reduced the capital required to build the tailings over there, and we've reduced the reclamation costs and isolated that problem and used a whole lot less water in the process.
It's commendable. You touched on a couple of the projects you had there for readers and investors not familiar with McEwen Mining. Can you just give a brief overview? Because you have assets in various stages of production and development and exploration, and also in various geographies. So just a brief overview of McEwen Mining.
All right. We're listed in New York and Toronto. We have operations, a gold mine in Timmins. We're building a gold mine in Nevada right now that'll be up and running at the beginning of the year. In Mexico, we have a gold mine that's come to the end, but we have that silver project that could run for another 12 years. We are in Argentina with a joint venture where we have a gold and silver mine, an underground mine that's been going since 2007. Mm-hmm. And we have a very large copper project down there, about 30 billion pounds of copper. So we have optionality to silver, copper, and gold.
You've obviously been very successful in the mining space, and that's great, but I want to ask you about some of the things you're doing outside of the mining space, specifically philanthropy. Would you like to tell us what you're involved with, please?
Happy to. The biggest project is in the medical field. In 2003, my wife and I funded the establishment of a medical research center dealing with regenerative medicine and stem cell research. And that came out of 2 members of my family died in 2002 in fairly quick succession. And I looked at our healthcare system and said, we're not going to be able to scale up fast enough. The baby boom's retiring. At age 60 beyond, you're looking at 80% of your healthcare costs. We can't scale up fast enough to give the same level of service to the baby boomers and the generations that follow that we gave to the parents of the baby boom. So what are we going to do? What's a different model? In regenerative medicine, it holds out the promise. It's not a guarantee. But I said, let's look at another way of trying to address this problem and lower the care, improve the recovery times, and address a lot of the diseases that take people out. So we do that. Along the way, we set up a prize. Every year we give out $100,000 US to an individual or 2 researchers who are innovating in the stem cell research area. And the first guy that did it, or won it, was a Japanese researcher who was able to take a skin cell and reverse engineer it into a stem cell and thereby jump over the ethical issues of sourcing embryonic stem cells. So that opened the field dramatically. But what was really exciting about this was that a year and a half later, he won the Nobel Prize for that same work. And I went, now that's cool.
That's really cool.
Could we find other people? Could we support other researchers that can make that type of discovery? And so that's part of our quest. The rest is into leadership and saying, how do we encourage Canadians to step across the threshold into the unknown? Take that first step that's really hard to do. So we have a leadership programs in a couple of schools and entrepreneurial areas, because I think that's what we need going forward. We need people who take risk, calculated risk, but want to build and create an economy that can support the standard of living that we have and improve it and make Canada an even better place to be in.
It's very commendable. It's a field I'm interested in. I think there's pathways to cures for diseases that we haven't even thought about or discovered yet, and I'm glad that you're putting some dollars to that use. Rob McEwen, Chairman, Chief Owner of McEwen Mining, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Nick. Pleasure.